Derick's the best player I've ever coached. He's the best leader I've ever been around. First guy in line all the time. Wants to jump up, wants to lead. He'd do his rep, and then he'd go wait. Dylan Brooks would do his rep, and he'd take Dylan to the side and show him little things that Dylan could do a little bit better.
Derick is very explosive. He's really fast for his size, so he's a big guy. He's very, very athletic.
You know, growing up training twice a day, you're tired, you feel like, you have nothing left in the tank, but you got to get up and go back.
The National Football League has a serious Derick Hall problem, but it's probably not the kind of problem you're thinking of. This isn't a character issue, it's not a legal issue, and it is definitely not a talent issue. No, this problem, it runs much deeper, and it exposes a fundamental flaw in how the entire league evaluates human beings. Think about it. NFL scouts are absolute masters of measurement. They can tell you a man's 40-yard dash time down to the hundredth of a second. They can measure hand size, arm length, and vertical leap with terrifying precision. They have mountains of data, analytics, and film. But what they can't measure is heart. There's no way to quantify a 1% chance of survival. They don't have a metric for a mother who looks a doctor in the eye and refuses to sign a Do Not Resuscitate form for her son because she knows he will be great one day.
I had to fight every day for my son because I felt like the doctors wasn't fighting for him.
And the Scouts have no way of charting a spirit that has been fighting since the moment it took its very first breath. The NFL's problem is that its whole process is designed to find athletes, not survivors. And in the case of Derick Hall, they completely, totally missed the most important part of the story. Because before he was a Super Bowl champion, before he was an NFL linebacker, he was a miracle. See, to really understand the man who would one day hoist that Lombardi trophy, we have to go all the way back. Back to March 19th, 2001 at Gulfport Memorial Hospital. A woman named Stacy Gooden-Crandle was just 23 and a half weeks into her pregnancy when she suddenly gave birth to her son. Derick Hall was born 4 months premature, weighing just 2 pounds and 9 ounces. He was so small that the 7-pound Lombardi trophy he would one day lift weighed more than twice his own birth weight.
He was born dead.
In fact, he was born without a heartbeat. The room filled with a team of physicians and specialists, all of them working frantically. They did manage to resuscitate him, but the prognosis, it was grim. He had a bleed in his brain. The doctors told his mother he had a 1% chance of surviving through the night.
Derick was on so many machines and equipment. They wanted me to sign a form to take him off of life support because they didn't expect him to live.
They came to her with a clipboard and a choice. They told her that even if he did survive, he would have no quality of life. He would never walk, he would never talk. They asked her point blank if she was prepared to take care of a child like that. And if she wasn't, all she had to do was sign the form in front of her, a Do Not Resuscitate order. In that moment, the doctors saw a statistic, a liability, a collection of heartbreaking data points. But Stacy, she just saw her son, and she made a choice that would change everything. She refused to sign. She refused to give up. As she put it,
I just felt like he deserved the shot, and I had to be the one to give it to him.
that single act of defiance, that was Derick Hall's first victory. For 3 weeks, he was on a ventilator. Then the doctors decided it was time to test him, to see if he could breathe on his own. They removed the life support. He took his first breaths on his own, but that wasn't the end of it. He would spend nearly 5 months in total in that NICU before he was finally allowed to go home. The doctors had been wrong about him surviving the night. Then they were wrong about him walking. Then they were wrong about him talking. It seemed like every time the medical establishment said he couldn't, he did. But the fight was far from over. He battled an underdeveloped respiratory system and intense asthma all through his childhood. While other kids were running around outside, he often had to watch from the sidelines. He would just sit there, watching them play and wonder if he would ever get to be a normal kid. So when he was 4 years old, his mother enrolled him in flag football. The goal wasn't to create a superstar. It was just to help him develop his lungs, to help him run around and feel like a normal kid.
We had to make in some caveats for him, telling the coaches like, okay, well, he can run for about 10 minutes, and then you may have to pull him out to give him a break.
But then something else happened. He didn't just run, he freaking flew.
Once I got in this game of football, it became my way of escape. I fell in love with it and I took off. Really, when I got into middle school, I was like, dang, I'm pretty much unstoppable.
He had fallen in love with the very game that was, quite literally, helping him breathe. By the time he left Gulfport High School, he was a 4-star recruit and the first Under Armour All-American in the school's history. He earned a scholarship to Auburn, where he became a star edge rusher in the toughest conference in all of college football.
There he goes! Derick Hall!
He was named to the All-Southeastern Conference team in both 2021 and 2022, and he led the team in sacks and tackles for loss in both of those seasons. He finished his college career with 147 career tackles and 19.5 career sacks. And he was even named a Jason Witten Man of the Year semifinalist in 2022, not for his play on the field, but for using his paycheck to help out Jackson, Mississippi with food and water when their water supply failed. He had watched his mother fight for people her entire career as a licensed social worker. It's safe to say he learned that lesson well. But even with all of that success, the old doubt started to creep back in, this time from the NFL scouts. The league's measurement machine was in full effect. They saw his production, but they had concerns. Scouting reports started questioning his technique. One report said he, quote, struggles with his pad level. Another noted he was, quote, more reliant on his strength, which won't be good enough against NFL tackles. Some analysts had him projected as a late second-round pick at best. The consensus seemed to be that he lacked a true go-to pass rush move. He was good. But was he great? The NFL just wasn't sure. On draft day in 2023, he sat and watched as 36 other players were selected ahead of him. Think about that for a second. He had survived a 1% chance of death. He had beaten asthma, a ventilator, and nearly 5 months in a NICU. He had become a first-team All-SEC edge rusher in the toughest conference in college football. And now, on the biggest day of his professional life, he sat there and watched 36 other men get called before him. He didn't go in the first round. He was the 37th overall pick selected by the Seattle Seahawks.
Hey, Derick, it's John Schneider with the Seattle Seahawks. How you doing, bud?
Yes, sir, I'm doing good. How are you?
Good, man. We're at 37 right here. We're going to make you a Seahawk, okay?
Yes, sir, I got you, coach.
It was a dream come true, of course, but it was also a deeply familiar story. Once again, the experts had measured all the tangibles, and they found him just a little bit wanting. They saw a powerful athlete, but they didn't see the survivor who had been defying expectations his entire life. And at first, his rookie season in 2023 seemed to confirm the scouts' concerns. He played in all 17 games, but he recorded 0 sacks. The pressures were there, but the results just weren't. It was a difficult introduction to the league, but then again, Derick Hall was no stranger to difficult introductions. Then came the 2024 season, and everything started to click. He exploded with a breakout year, racking up 8 sacks, 37 tackles, and 2 forced fumbles. He was quickly becoming a key piece of a rising Seattle defense, a defense that was quietly becoming one of the best units in the entire NFL. The kid who started playing football just to strengthen his lungs was now using that strength to chase down the best quarterbacks in the world. He was proving that he belonged here just as much as anyone else. And he was doing it the only way he knew how, by simply refusing to quit. But his biggest impact wasn't just on the field. In October of 2024, his teammate, a first-round pick named Byron Murphy II, had a daughter born 3 months premature. She weighed just 2 pounds and 5 ounces. Hall knew that fear. He knew what that uncertainty felt like. He knew the phone calls, the waiting, the praying. So he texted Murphy pictures of himself as a newborn, a tiny baby who was given no chance to live. He reminded his teammate that he had beaten much, much bleaker odds. He told Murphy to have faith. It was this quiet act of mentorship, a shared bond between two men who understood a fight that most people could never, ever imagine. Which brings us to February 8th, 2026, Super Bowl 60. Levi's Stadium in Santa Clara, California, the Seattle Seahawks versus the New England Patriots. And Derick Hall wasn't just a spectator, he was a starter. a critical player on one of the best defenses in the NFL, a unit they called the Dark Side. A defense that had allowed fewer points per game than any other team in the entire league that season. All game long, the Seahawks defense had been dominant, but they had struggled to put the Patriots away for good. As the third quarter came to a close, Seattle was clinging to a 12-0 lead. The Patriots had the ball. It was third down. Quarterback Drake May dropped back to pass. The pocket immediately began to collapse around him. May tried to step up and find a lane, but there was nowhere to go. And then, it happened. Number 58, Derick Hall. He powered right through the Patriots' offensive line, wrapped up the quarterback, and as he was bringing him to the ground, he punched the ball out. A strip sack. The ball was loose and recovered by none other than Byron Murphy, the very same man whose premature daughter Hall had helped carry through the fear just a few months before. It was the game's first turnover. It was the knockout punch.
She's still here. It's 3rd and 5. May's trying to step up. He lost the football. It's free and Seattle has recovered.
Hall didn't even realize he had forced the fumble at first. He fired an imaginary arrow into the sky, his signature celebration, and then looked up to see his teammates celebrating downfield with the football. 5 plays later, the Seahawks scored their first offensive touchdown of the game, extending the lead to 19-0. And that was it. The game was effectively over. The Seattle Seahawks were Super Bowl champions. As the confetti fell, Hall found his mother on the sideline, the woman who had been at every single game he had ever played, from 4-year-old flag football all the way to the Super Bowl. They hugged, and the tears just flowed. Tears of joy, of vindication, of a journey that no one could have ever predicted. "Kudos to Mom," Hall said after the game.
I feel like she's the unsung hero, the unsung warrior, through this whole process, and the love and compassion that and she's always fought for me.
After the celebration, someone pointed out to Derick Hall that the Lombardi trophy he was holding weighed 7 pounds, more than double his own birth weight. He just shook his head and smiled. "That's crazy," he said. "It's truly a blessing." And that brings us right back to the NFL's Derick Hall problem. The league's evaluation process is built to find the next superstar athlete. It's a system that prizes the measurable over the immeasurable. But it's a system that is fundamentally, deeply incomplete. It overlooked the single most important factor in Derick Hall's success: a lifetime of fighting against impossible odds. Scouts measure 40 times, but they don't measure resilience. They measure bench press reps, but they don't measure a mother's love. They saw a prospect with some technical flaws. They missed the man who was pronounced dead at birth and simply refused to die. And somewhere in the middle of all of it, there was Stacy Gooden-Crandle, the woman who had been handed a clipboard and a choice 25 years earlier and refused to sign. The woman who enrolled a 4-year-old boy in flag football just so he could breathe. The woman who was at every single game, from the very first one all the way to this one. She had made a decision in that hospital room that the doctor said was hopeless, and now she was watching her son hoist the Lombardi trophy. The NICU at Memorial Hospital in Gulfport reportedly printed up flyers during Super Bowl week that read, "Good luck, Derick Hall and the Seattle Seahawks. We're cheering you on from the NICU." The same unit that saved his life 25 years ago was now watching him win the biggest game in the world. Derick Hall's story is a powerful reminder that the greatest force in sports isn't a strong arm or quick feet. It's the human spirit. And the NFL will always have a problem as long as it continues to search for greatness with a stopwatch and a measuring tape.